This is Link to the Cast, your weekly dose of video games and nerd culture ephemera, available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I am this week's party host. I am Two Cat Daddy Mark Robinson. Dave Ryan is away on assignment, but don't worry, the triple threat is here. To my left, first of all, he is Stamford Bridge's favourite son, possibly. Who knows at this point? Jack Lazel. Jack, how are you?
Yeah, hands up if anyone's been looking sad on national TV in their country this week. No, just me. Okay then. Yeah. So
did you put that in our group? Because like we have a couple of group chats together. Did you put that in the one with Garrett or the one with Nina? I think that was the one with Nina.
I think it was the one with Nina. I should have put it in the one with Garrett as well. I also massively popped some people I was on a work call with earlier because, like, pulling the curtain back at the extremely boring detail of my job, I have to communicate with people in the East Midlands, one of whom is a Wolves fan, the other one, bizarrely, is an Arsenal fan, and then he was just like, I was miserable about football until you came along, and then they were just giving it to me, and I was like, lads, look, I'm maxed out for embarrassment this week, and I sent them that, and the pop reveal of them seeing me and my big stupid face in front of a banner that says "In Frank We Trust," as we sink to our fifth consecutive defeat, 4 of them to 0. Oh, just, yeah, I'm maxed out basically. Like, you can't embarrass me anymore this week, really. So there you go. How about you? Well, you son of a bitch.
I'm good. We're into week 2 now of having the second cat, and she's starting to come a little bit out of her shell. She did, while we were watching a film last night, she managed to start climbing up the blinds that we have, like getting towards the top of the window, towards the ceiling of the room, and then took what only can be described as the Shane McMahon from SummerSlam 2000 bump, where she basically just jumped backwards, did like a kind of like a sort of free pratfall, and then just disappeared out of view because the couch is kind of between the window and where her space is. So she just disappeared. Like, we didn't see how she landed, where she landed, and we didn't hear anything for about a minute. I was like, we're gonna give her a minute, see if she starts to move around, and we didn't hear anything. So she's like, all right, great, she's fucking like killed herself or something. Come around the corner and she's just lying there like, that didn't quite go to plan, staring at us, just kind of sheepishly embarrassed about the whole situation. But she's completely insane. I can't work out if she is a cat or a fox or a ferret. She has kind of characteristics of all 3 and more. She's just, and our other cat is just like, what the fuck is this thing you brought into the house? So it's interesting. It's been a very interesting week. To my right, he is the nexus of humanity. He is Garrett Kidney. Garrett, what animal do you most identify with?
I hate foxes.
You hate foxes?
You hate foxes?
Yeah. I answered the opposite of your question.
You did. You've thrown me for a loop there.
Garrett has been waiting to come out against foxes for years because, in his own words, they've been getting away with it too long, Mark.
Yeah, you mentioned foxes when you were trying to determine the species of your cat, and that reminded me of how any night I go for a walk, there are foxes absolutely everywhere because we're encroaching on their natural habitat and they have nowhere to live. So they're just wandering the streets, and then they give me weird looks and then run away, and I think they're conspiring against me.
And then scream in that way that only a fox can scream.
Foxes are scary, and like there's a bunch of rabbits in the area where the foxes, and I'm like, do they eat the rabbits or are they friends?
No, they probably eat them.
They're probably not friends.
Garrett, do any of them sound like George Clooney?
No.
Oh.
This is disappointing.
Has cinema lied to me again?
No.
Oh, so there.
I just don't get close enough.
But do foxes scream like they're from Cork? That's the other question.
Yes, they actually have the accent. It's very strange.
But crucially, back to my original question, Garrett, what animal do you most identify with?
I like bears. I think it would be bears.
I think of the two of us, my frame is probably closer to being a bear than you.
Well, I was trying to think there. What was that? There was a show in, like, I want to say like the late 80s or early 90s. Was it Animorphs? Was that what it was called?
Oh, yeah, Animorphs. Yeah, that was a thing where the kids turned into animals. And there was a terrible Game Boy game based on it.
What?
Okay, well, that's what... Mark, you're going to stream that on Monday, right?
Fucking... Well, no, I'm going to finish Metal Gear Solid. That's the plan, but I know what I'm doing afterwards.
It's like a weird Pokemon kind of thing, and it's incomprehensible nonsense.
Excellent. Right, that is on the list. I didn't realize there was a series of books. Huh.
Oh, the books are crazy. Like, they're so dark. It's like Animorphs go to space and half of them die and they kill a civilization. Like, that's what happens in the Animorphs books.
What?
There was a Twitter thread about it a couple of years ago about like the just insane plots of the Animorphs books, and it's crazy.
They go to space and they kill a civilization. So like they're colonial Animorphs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Was this written by a British guy?
Animorphs are evil.
I feel like it's the sort of thing where someone saw these books, saw the kind of like general concept, and went, look, I'll give you a large sum of money for the general concept, and then we're going to filter this down to something that's approachable for kids. How about that?
General concept is my favourite genre.
Yeah. Let us go from this onto what we've been watching this week. And do you know what? I'm going to start with you, Garrett, because I feel like Jack a couple of weeks ago spoke about Dungeons and Dragons, so we'll get some thoughts from you on this now.
Yeah, so Jack was mostly right. In fact, I think entirely right. A shockingly good film that was done a terrible disservice with terrible trailers.
Oh, the trailers are dog shit, didn't they?
I think he didn't focus enough on like how bad the trailers were and why people weren't excited for this movie, and that like they were terrible. They were terrible trailers that made it look like every cynical bad blockbuster you've ever seen. And then you go see the movie, and it's like a nice, enjoyable, swashbuckling, doesn't take itself too seriously, but also doesn't undercut its own stakes adventure movie. And I'm like, good job, you did it. And you were focusing like on the like some of the meta aspects, and like I think I've developed a reputation on this podcast as a person who hates things that are meta, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I hate things that are cynical. The things that exist to undercut themselves at all moments, things that are ashamed of the thing that they are. Because there's some meta stuff in this film. Like there's a fun gag where they're crossing a bridge, and like each step of the bridge will set off a different trap. So he's like, you have to step on the second one halfway through, and then you have to step on uneven blocks in the second half. Then someone just steps on the bridge and it collapses, and it's a fun bit. And I'm like, that is meta D&D gags, and I don't hate it. And then my brain was like, why don't I hate it? And it's like, it's not cynical. It's actually kind of the opposite. It's a little loving nod to D&D in general. And then I'm like, when I think about She-Hulk and all of the Marvel nonsense, all of that is just cynical. It's just like, we did a bad thing. That's the show. And that makes me want to tear my hair out and hate everything in existence. And then you just go see this movie, which it won't blow your socks off, even though there's some very good action. Jack was talking about the scene where the character is running through the city and turning into various animals and shape-shifting in and out of animals depending on the scene. Really cool. There was also another a scene where they're doing like a reverse heist where they're trying to sneak a painting into a carriage, and there's like a whole bunch of like Portal nonsense. Portal as in the video game, and there's a bunch of stuff like that that's real cool. And it's a fun family film that is proud of what it is, and you will have a good time at it, and has like a nice little message about failure, and failure is only failure if you really let it be failure. It's only failure when you stop, and then the failure is like cemented. And it's like, oh, that's a nice little message coming out of this movie. Thumbs up. Well done. You made a film that it's kind of flopped, which just surprised me because I went to see it last week, which I think is about 3 or 4 weeks into its theatrical run at this stage, and it was like 60 to 70% full. And I was like, oh, this should be doing pretty well. Then I checked it's by like how much it's made. It's like, ooh, it's barely even breaking even. So we're probably not going to get another one, which is a shame, but it's a good little movie. You'll have a good time.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those things where the timing is really unfortunate because of the Mario film. And I think as well as like, I don't know who this film is supposed to be catered towards, and if it was supposed to be catered towards a younger audience. Again, like Mario's out and making all the money, so I think it never stood a chance.
Chris Pine should be in more things as well. Was my main takeaway from the movie. I was like, this guy's so charming and charismatic. He absolutely smashes this.
Yeah, because like he led the Star Trek franchise, and I think he led it well. And like he is a great leading man here, so he has a good proven track record as a leading man. I'm surprised he's not a superhero yet. He probably will be, or already is. Maybe I've forgotten something he's in, but I'd imagine it'll be a matter of time before he is. But he can.
Well, I mean, he is in Wonder Woman, so
yeah, but he's just a pilot. He's just like a pilot, though, isn't he? He's not like sort of just flies planes. Not that I'm saying that pilots aren't superheroes in their own way.
He is also a Spider-Man in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, I confused him with Jake Johnson and greatly annoyed myself when I remembered.
Did someone call you out and then you're like, I know?
Someone called me out, and as I said it, I was like, I know that's wrong, but also I edit this show, so if I don't make a big deal out of it, I can just quietly carve
Jack,
it out.
do you remember specifically who called you out?
Do I remember who called me out?
Yeah.
It was Garrett's brother.
It was a certain Ken Kidney, yes.
Was it Ken?
It was Kenneth Kidney, if that is his full name. But like, I didn't, I wasn't mad at Ken. I was mad at myself,
Raging at Ken. How dare Ken call you out in public as well? Disgusting.
I know. If he just sent me if he just slid into my DMs like really quietly, going, Jack, you got this wrong. The thing that really sucks is
what if he DM'd you with Jack? You're right, cunt.
I mean, the first time you've ever interacted with him.
If he DM'd me that, I'd just explore it. I'd just be like, why do you feel like this way against somebody that you've never met that is, like weird internet friends with your brother?
Shout out to Ken. That was an episode I wasn't on and he still listened. So there you go.
Look, I like Ken. I've had a few interactions with him. He seems like a lovely chap. What I'm learning is the Kidney family, thumbs up so far.
I thought you were just going to be like family of pedants.
Nah, top bunch of lads.
Which is also probably true. Yeah, go see this Dungeons and Dragons movie. You want a good time.
I do want to see it. I haven't got around to it yet, but it is on the list. Based on Jack's recommendation and now yours as well. Instead, what I've been spending my time watching was a little film called Alien vs. Predator from 2004. So, as I've said over the past couple of weeks, myself and Maria, we have our movie night. We alternate like who's going to watch, who picks the film each week. It was her turn this week, and she said to me beforehand that this was like a film that she watched a lot growing up. It was like her favourite film. So I was like, all right, okay, fair enough. I will, go into this with an open mind. I've never sat through and watched the whole of the original Alien because for what I mentioned previously about being a complete wuss.
Yeah, one of the best survival horror movies of all time. It's incredible.
Yeah. I have seen Predator though, and Predator is fucking awesome. I love it. Never seen Predator 2 the whole way through, and I haven't seen any of the like soft reboots they've done over the last couple of years or whatever. But original Predator, thumbs up. What I do know about this film going in, or before I was going into it, is that it was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who did the original Mortal Kombat film, which I think is still one of the better video game adaptations that are done. I've seen the original Resident Evil. That's kind of about it, though, because basically past that, he kind of lost the plot with the 12 Resident Evil sequels or so afterwards. And
there was loads of them. How many Resident Evil movies are there? Like,
I'm looking right now. You've got Resident Evil, Apocalypse, Extinction, Afterlife, Retribution, and the final chapter. So
that is way more than should ever have. Or actually, is Mila Jovovich?
Yeah, she's in all of them. Yeah.
She's in every single one of them.
And the biggest issue is obviously after about the second one, the storyline diverts wildly off course from the source material. Not that the source material is exactly, fucking Shakespeare, but still, he kind of went wild with them. And he just, a really weird career where he had this really kind of like promising, a kind of a promising young director of the 90s. I've never seen Event Horizon, but I know it as a kind of cult classic. And certainly from the bits that I've watched, like I watched, not documentaries, but kind of critical reviews and analysis on that film, and basically his style. And like you can kind of tell when you're watching a Paul W.S. Anderson film, he does have a specific style, the way that he frames shots, the way that he uses like certain tones. Like he does have a specific style that I think kind of lends to like, hey, yeah, I'm watching one of these films. But like the turn of the 21st century, and certainly after like the original Resident Evil film, he just lost the plot. And I don't know whether it's just he couldn't be bothered anymore and he was just happy to take a steady check of like, fucking look, Capcom is giving me free reign with the Resident Evil license, whatever, just I'm gonna make these piece of shit films and be done with it.
Also, if someone said to you, Oh yeah, you know that driving movie that has Jason Statham and Tyrese in it. You're like, oh, what you mean Fast and Furious? And then people are like, no, 2008's Death Race, made by Paul W.S. Have you ever seen Death Race, by the way?
I've not, no.
Oh, that is some homework for you next week, my friend.
Oh boy, I didn't realise there was a Monster Hunter film from a few years ago as well, or I completely forgot about that anyway.
Well, they were just like, oh, you know, you make video game adaptations, try Monster Hunter. And he's like, can I put Mila Jovovich in it? And they're like, yeah, sure you can. He's like, woohoo! And then skipped away with a big, probably not that big pile of money. Oh no, $60 million! Eat my... What? 60 million? This Monster Hunter movie had a budget of $60 million. I didn't know it existed either. What is going on? Has anyone... Garrett, have you seen this Monster Hunter movie? Or did you know it existed?
I did know it existed. I saw the trailers. I have not watched it.
Oh my god. Ron Perlman was in it. That must have been like... What the hell?
I think because it came out in 2020 and basically everything from that year is a complete blur at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. T.I. is in this as well. T.I., the rapper.
So, Alien vs. Predator, right. So the first issue with this film is that it clearly, and, you know, I'm not, you know, like a deep lore perv when it comes to Alien and or Predator, but I get the feeling that this thing is meant to be its own isolated, like, doesn't exist within the canon of either of these two source materials. I know there's like a line of comics and whatever else, but I don't know how, you know, they play whatever. But as far as I can see, this is just its own goofy little thing because fuck it, let's do Alien versus Predator. That would be fine and all, except for the part that, like, 10 minutes into it, Lance Henriksen shows up as, like, some other character that isn't, you know, like, related to the version of him in Alien or Alien 3. So that kind of threw me for a loop. And again, not even being, like, a big Alien kind of fanboy or anything, I'm like, this makes no sense, but whatever. The first hour of this film is really fucking boring because it's just all set up. And other than the fact that I think visually, I think this film is really, really impressive. It's set in Antarctica. They find like a pyramid that's kind of deep beneath the surface. It's very, it's shot again like the, you know, I think Anderson does have a really good way of framing shots, and it has a very kind of claustrophobic, isolated sort of vibe to it. I think, you know, production wise, I think this film does look really good, even for, you know, 2004. But the problem is the film is really fucking boring for the first hour because the dialogue is just completely ho-hum. The performances are also completely ho-hum. Like, everyone, I think, realizes what they're working with here, so no one's going above like a 3 or 4 in terms of the performances. And so you're just waiting around for the bit where Alien and Predator start going at it. Once that happens, the film gets a big thumbs up because it goes from being a bad film to being a dumb, funny, enjoyable bad film because, you know, all of the performances are still horrendous, but, like, you know, you've got, you know, a freaking xenomorph and a predator and they're going at it, and, you know, that's all good. I think the way it's shot, I think the practical effects, like the way the xenomorph looks, there's a couple of ropey CGI shots here and there, but, you know, they do try and use a fair bunch of practical effects, and I think they're really, really well done. And you're having a great old time for like the next sort of half an hour or so. And then the film goes completely batshit towards the end. And yes, I realise this is a film about Alien versus Predator, and I shouldn't be really kind of focusing on these kind of small details. But basically, there's a bit towards the end where the lead actress, she is running away from the Queen Xenomorph, who is, you know, like 12, 15 feet tall. She's massive. And again, reminder, we're in Antarctica here. She is running. They're back on the surface, and she's running towards this kind of like disused water pump or tower. She's in nothing but trousers and a top, and she's running away from this alien who, you know, for every like 10 steps this woman takes, the xenomorph is doing 1 step, but she's trying, you know, she's staying ahead of the xenomorph. Again, in nothing but a shirt and trousers. She should be frozen to death by the time she even hit the surface. And it manages just to go so overboard, you know, even though by this point she's befriended the Predator, and that whole fucking scenario is ridiculous, that it goes full circle from being like a bad film to an enjoyably bad film to just back to being a bad film again. And I realise there's a sequel to this Alien vs Predator. I will not be watching that. I don't know if I could say I enjoyed my time watching it. I had a time watching it. I won't say either negative or positive. But it's fucking Alien versus Predator, I guess. Like, what was I expecting going in? It's a dumb film.
Did you connect to the deep lore about how predators have been coming to Antarctica for thousands of years to this pyramid to have a good time?
I did enjoy the kind of concepts of the reason that Alien Predator are here. I was like, you know what? You tried. You gave it a good go to give at least some context to why, or some meaning to why these two things would be in this one place at the one time. So yeah, just really just a dumb film, but I guess if you're in the cinema with some friends, I can understand the appeal to this sort of thing, which I feel like has been the mentality of Paul Anderson for the last 20 years, but there you go. Okay, Jack, you've got two things on the docket this week. I think I will start with Renfield, because I saw the trailer to that and I went, hey, that looks fun. That looks like something I want to watch. I've only seen kind of like snapshots of reviews that have been like not so keen on it, so I'm curious to see what you think of it.
Here's my review. What you should do is you should go into whatever platform you can find, and you should watch all the series of What We Do in the Shadows, and you should forget about Renfield.
All right.
because Renfield is essentially just What We Do in the Shadows, but it doesn't have Matt Berry in it. They've swapped
But it does have Nick Cage. I feel like that's a fairly decent replacement.
There just isn't enough Cage for me. Like, a lot of it is like Nicholas Hoult.
I mean, the film is called Renfield.
Being like foppishly handsome in a sort of like Hugh Grant in the early to mid 90s way.
An upsettingly foppishly handsome man, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's always been my take on Nicholas Hoult.
He is a good looking dude. Like, you can't deny it. And like, I kind of feel like his entire persona he's doing in this movie is a takeoff of 90s Hugh Grant, which makes sense, right? They worked together on like About a Boy way back in the day, didn't they? So yeah, it says to me that he would have the measure of the man down. But yeah, it's just a movie about someone who's a vampire's familiar and, not really, feeling squashed down by that and wanting their own independence and their own life. And I'm like, oh, okay, so he's just Guillermo from What We Do in the Shadows. And yeah, Nicolas Cage is Dracula, but he's not as likable as say like Matt Berry in What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, Awkwafina's in it. I didn't know she was in it. I'd seen the poster and I'd seen like a trailer, and I didn't really remember seeing much of her in either of those things. But I really like her and most of the stuff she's in, and she just is kind of like I'm phoning it in here. I'm just being my cool, funny Awkwafina self, but I really don't care about this movie. And it is, yeah, depressingly transactional as a movie. I didn't think it was that good. It does just feel.
The development history is interesting in that this was meant to be part of that like Dark Pictures universe.
Oh,
that's wild. What?
Yeah, it was announced in 2014, focusing on Renfield, and then after The Mummy flopped, which was like supposed to be the launch of that universe, they were like, all right, let's retool this, I guess.
Jesus, what else was involved in that universe, or was planned to be in that universe?
It's all like the Universal monsters. So whoever that
Frankenstein?
is. Yeah.
Yeah, The Mummy, Bigfoot.
I never saw that Tom Cruise Mummy film. Presuming I should keep it that way?
Yeah, Tom Cruise does not make many bad movies, but that is a Titanic piece of shit, Mark.
I mean, like, after the Brandon Fraser Mummy, why would you ever attempt to do another one? I realise tonally they're probably very different, but still.
Yeah. Tom Cruise is really cool at a lot of stuff, but Brandon Fraser brings like such a lovable energy to that character, and just, well, generally in life is just a very like lovable sort of person. Good dude. So yeah, I don't know, but they try to make it dark and twisty and scary because they're obviously trying to do that dark universe thing, and
But I'm guessing then that, so if this was meant to be a part of that dark universe and then that got hacked off, that tonally this probably feels very different to what it would have been like if it had been part of that universe.
Yeah, but it feels to me like they were making it, then that flopped. And they were like, what should we pivot into? Someone watched the original What We Do in the Shadows movie, and they were like, hey, funny vampire familiar. Let's make it about the familiar rather than the Dracula. And that's what happened, which is why we barely get any Nicolas Cage. We get a little bit of Nicolas Cage. I'm going to say like 5-10 minutes at most of Nicolas Cage. And unfortunately, he's not going full Cage. Really, they make him like, they give him like the full evil, scary Dracula makeup, but you don't get... I don't know. I don't know if you guys would agree with me. It's like half of the stuff I love about Nicolas Cage is just the true madness of his expressions.
Of course.
He is a... Yeah, I mean, like, I'll leave it to Arbed and Community to try and explain Nicolas Cage to you. But that sort of manic energy, you're like, oh, this could be really cool. But then, like, most of the time he's just covered in, like, really aggressively expensive-looking makeup and prosthetics. And you're like, oh, I didn't even get enough Cage, Like, there wasn't enough in the movie for it to be good. And... I don't know. It just felt like basically a rom-com between Nicholas Hoult and Awkwafina, where one of them feeds people to vampires and the other one works for the FBI. What? It's just like, I don't know, man. Fuck this movie. That's my review. It's like, don't bother. Honestly, maybe catch it when it's free to watch on whatever streaming services that you own. But,
for as much as they shelved that dark universe, this is like the third movie that's come out of it that like. They shelved the idea of it being a shared universe, but a bunch of the movies that they decided to make actually still got made. So the first was The Mummy, which has the record for being the funniest trailer in existence because it's that one they were released without the audio accidentally, and it is so funny. It is so funny because they forgot all the sound effects. It's so good. The second, The Invisible Man, which is a fucking awesome movie. The 2020 one. That movie is so good. And now Renfield.
Never saw that.
Yeah, like shockingly good. Like it's just randomly come out of nowhere. Like real good performances from it's Elizabeth Moss in it. She's great in that movie.
She is great. Yeah, I remember seeing the trailers for it now, and it was super creepy, like a deep horror looking movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, it will get to you. It's very good.
Yeah.
And now Renfield, and there's still like a bunch in development, like Frankenstein, like Van Helsing, like a Dracula movie, which I assume would have Nicolas Cage in it, spinning off of this, if this wasn't, by all accounts, also a flop. The Wolfman.
Well, it's probably a case that all of these got signed, and so those, if they've been signed, it's like, I guess we're making these things now, unless they just.
Mark, they cancelled a whole Batgirl movie that was finished. You don't think they could just go, nah, fuck this?
Well, we're talking about different production studios here, surely.
Yeah, and it is probably the thing where it's like they had the actor signed to deals for a movie, and they're like, well, we might as well still make an Invisible Man movie. It's just not the one we're making anymore. And it's the same, like, we might as well make a Frankenstein movie. Why not? It's just not.
I mean, it's been a while since we've had one, so fuck it, why not?
It's weird to see that universe still, like, weirdly crawl on in the strangest of forms.
I don't want to see another fucking Frankenstein movie.
Does this mean, though, for me at least, then, that still to this day the best Dracula adaptation is 1995's Dracula Dead and Loving It?
Yeah.
Good. That's all right. That's all matters to me.
Yeah, like
Leslie Nielsen, God bless you, rest in peace.
But yeah, just Nicholas Hoult, great actor, but some of the just don't make any more Renfields, mate. Although you know what the next movie that he's in is, don't you? And it also ends with Field. That's right, he's in the Garfield movie in 2024. Yes, they're making a Garfield movie. Have a guess who's playing Garfield? Yes, that's right, it's Super Mario, Chris Pratt himself.
Wait, is this like a soft reboot of Garfield or what?
No.
Okay.
No.
Are they going to incorporate Garfamon? Because that's all I care about.
It's a new movie. Samuel L. Jackson and Ving Rhames are also in it for reasons.
If you'd told me Samuel L. Jackson was Garfield, I'd have been fully on board with this.
No, he's Garfield's dad, so I'm guessing he's like an older Garfield. Hannah Waddingham and Brett Goldstein are in it because someone was watching Ted Lasso when they were casting it, and they thought, fuck it, I'm going to put these two people in it as well. Oh my god, I did not know that was happening. But there you go, okay. Garfield will rise again. Hopefully we get a video game tie-in to kind of, get Jeff Gerstmann something to do these days, because it seems really lonely.
To tie into something we were mentioning last week, it's being directed by the same guy who directed The Emperor's New Groove.
I like The Emperor's New Groove.
There you go. Oh, it's animated now. It's not live action, so that gives it some hope.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't think like Chris Pratt was going to put on like a furry catsuit.
No, as in like
I think like the Bill Murray movie, which is like it had a CGI Garfield, but was a live action movie.
I thought you were just thinking he was going to put him in a giant like catsuit. It's the movie for the furries that they've all been waiting for.
Hell yeah,
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt has said meow in a film this year, so I guess anything's possible. Yeah.
Maybe they saw that one line and they were like, you know what? He's a really good ginger cat with a problem with a like eating problem when it comes to lasagna.
The other thing you've been watching this week, myself and Dave, noted fans of Always Sunny on this show. Jack, you have now started watching it, and you're about 6 seasons deep within the span of a week.
Yeah, really good show. It's one of those things that I've always just been intimidated by how long it is, because there's like 15 seasons. I'm like, Jesus Christ. When I look at something that has that many seasons, I just sort of balk immediately. And, it's like everyone and their mum could be telling you that something's really good, but you're like, that's such a massive time commitment. I'd only ever seen the odd episode here and there. Like, the first episode I got to that I'd seen before was the one where they try out for the Philadelphia Eagles, which, well, I loved that I watched, but I was getting super into American football, because somebody said it was really funny. And yeah, I'd watched the wrestling episode as well, but then completely forgotten that Rowdy Roddy Piper was in it. Just the pop when I saw that, and then the whole scene with Frank raising his arms, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Not exactly a hot take, but really great show. I mean, like I said to you before we were starting, I can count maybe like 10 times where I've just openly wept tears laughing at this thing. It's like the coldest take on the planet, I've got to say. The musical, the episode with Charlie's musical, The Nightman Cometh, is just, I mean, it's perfect in every possible way.
I'm glad you've joined us on this magical ride. Yeah. I think the thing with Always Sunny it is intimidating because it's like 15 seasons deep, but it being one of those shows where episodes are only 22 minutes long, like you fly through a season in fairly quick order.
And kind of what I like is they're all horrible, terrible people, like really ignorant, extremely self-absorbed, and have their own just hideous thoughts, and they never win. Like they are always the asshole in most situations, and like nothing ever really goes right for them. I just got through Dennis's two episode marriage arc with his childhood sweetheart who he married and then decided he was already sick of within like half a day. Just brilliant show. I don't have anything detailed to say about it. All I would be doing would just be re-explaining bits that I really, really liked. Like the Dennis system thing I love, or I don't know.
I think the thing as well with the show, that because you talk about, and it's one of the appeals of the show, one of the kind of the talking points of the show is that they are all awful people, but it's how they manage to be awful in different nuanced ways. And like every episode you think, oh no, actually Dee is the worst of them all, and the next episode, oh actually no, Dennis is the worst of them all, oh wait no, Frank is the worst, and you're constantly going on this cycle, and it does get to the point where you do realise that Dennis probably is the worst of them all, but it does take a while because there's this kind of just rotation of like different episodes where you focus on different aspects of their personalities where they're just being the worst people on earth.
Yeah, and also I've had Dayman, the song, just stuck in my head all week. Like I can't get it out. Every time I like close my eyes to go to sleep and I'm just like, Dayman, it just creeps back in there. To the point where I went onto YouTube and I found like a rock band who made a heavy sort of cover version of it with some really awesome guitar solo work and stuff, and I thoroughly recommend that for anybody who likes that song. They turn it into a proper rockin' cover. But yeah, Always Sunny, again, there's nothing new to say about it. Everybody that probably watches it in their life up to this point is probably just going, duh, it's a great show. It's something I always wanted to watch, and now I'm fully on board. And yeah, into season 6 this time next week I'll probably be, because we have a bank holiday here in England, so I think I'll probably be maybe most of the way through the show by the time we record again. I love it.
If I recall, Garrett, famously, you've not seen Always Sunny, if I recall.
Like 5 episodes?
One of those things that just didn't stick with you, or just haven't had the time to get into it?
One of those things I dipped into. It was like the first 5 episodes, and then I didn't continue watching, and it's the Jack thing that we mentioned at the very start. It's like, that's 15 seasons now. It's just like, it's so much of it.
Like, you've got to buy in huge.
Yeah.
But it is worth it. It is worth it.
And again, I think it's the thing where, because the episodes are only 22 minutes, like, you do kind of zip through pretty quickly. But it is one of those things, like with a bunch of other shows we spoke about before, where like the first season is a little bit rough around the edges. Danny DeVito isn't in yet. The production is they're working on a budget of about $3. And even by like the second season, you can see where like a whole bunch of things have come. And like from the second season onwards, you kind of get the feel of what the show is going to be.
It has that sort of, a bit like the first season of The Office, where Michael Scott was just a horrible, horrible person. And like, you couldn't look away from him. And then they were like, you know what we have to do to make this show work is we have to humanize Steve Carell. And they did a great job of it. Whereas in Always Sunny, they were like, oh, we could humanize these people, or we just won't.
No, they do make them worse. They do make them worse.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, not only do they not humanize them, they make them steadily, progressively worse. Yeah. Oh God, I veer violently between hating and feeling really sorry for Charlie in the show as well. Just when he's like, living on a couch with an old man, eating cat food. Oh, Charlie. And he wrote Dayman. He's clearly got musical talent. He could be doing so much better. And the waitress is never going to love him. And, the pain of it all. But what a goddamn television program that is.
All right, let's jump over to what we've been playing. And Garrett, I'm going to jump over to you. It is time for our, not weekly, but it's time for our latest round of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 content, sorry.
Propaganda is, I think, the word you're looking for.
This is the DLC, as far as I'm aware, that came out recently. How is this?
Yeah, this is the 4th wave of the DLC, but the actual like substantial bit. The rest was like, some new costumes, another quest. But this is an entirely standalone piece of DLC. It's like 15-20 hours long because it's the size of a normal game. So just like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they left like not like a gap in the story, but there was like threads they didn't see through to the end that they're like, hey, what was the deal with that? And then when it comes to the DLC, it's like, oh, that's the deal with that. And it did a very similar thing in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, where there's a couple threads in the actual game set around the city. That'll make sense if you play the game. And a couple characters that were introduced and then never really mentioned again. And then you're like, what happened to those guys? And that's what the DLC is about, filling out those little threads from the main game. And it's completely standalone, as I said. It's set as a prequel to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but with some characters from Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. Shulk and Rex are back. The lead protagonists of those 2 games are back, and now they're older and they're grizzled.
Shulk and Rex. Yeah.
And they come with, Shulk, you played Smash.
I haven't played that enough. I haven't played enough Smash to know Shulk.
I was going to say, Mark, how much Smash did you play? Like,
I spent a Christmas with a friend and played a bunch of Smash there, but that's about as far as I get.
Wait, you have friends that aren't me and Garrett?
I do.
You didn't main Shulk?
No, I didn't. I think I mostly played as Link.
I'm a Bowser main. Mostly because he does that big side dropkick that fucking wrecks shit, especially if you do like 4 battles. Yeah. Like, I'd never play Bowser one-on-one because he's too slow, but in like chaos battles, it's just like, yes, let me dropkick everything.
I really like Kirby in Smash.
Oh, because he has that down thing where he turns into a rock and you can just smash people. That's good fun.
Yep. And I like to hoover people also.
This is a completely standalone thing, its own title sequence, its own, like, you do not have to, it's completely separate. Your character's progression, all that. It even has some new systems, and it doesn't have all of the systems from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, so it's not even like just a copy of the battle system. They tweak that and change that up a little for this as well. And it's just more Xenoblade Chronicles 3. It's like, here's another 15-20 hour story. Here's another world you can wander around. Dave has already
more music.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dave has already struck me down from categories I get nominated in, like a petty bitch. But I probably wouldn't nominate it in music because it is like 30% new music, 70% reusing music from the first game. But again, the 30% of music is just fucking awesome. These people, like, every single time, it's the Xenoblade Chronicles. It probably goes back to Zelda because, like, when you walk out into Hyrule Field, they do the same thing every time. But you every time you play through the first couple hours of the game where they're doing all the tutorial and story nonsense, and then you walk into the first big open area and they play the big best sweeping open field theme you've ever heard in your life, and you're like, hell yeah, that's video games. And they do it over and over again, and you'd think like the people who do the music for these games would be sick of being asked to make the jaw-dropping opening field theme, but no, they just knock it out of it. They get better at it. They somehow haven't run out of ideas for those after making like 5 of them, I guess, between DLC and main games. And yeah, it's very filled with fan service, particularly because they are bringing back characters. And I think that it's designed to kind of tie up those threads from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 while putting like a bow on the first 2 games as well. And I think it seems to be doing that very nicely. And I love it. And it'll get nominated for Best Game of Not 2023. I doubt it will win it, but it will be on that sheet.
But Garrett, rules control the fun.
Rules,
you can't nominate it.
Rules are evil and keep me from pushing the agenda of Xenoblade Chronicles on more and more people. I got it over the line last year. I'm fine.
Is the open world music better than Blue Fields from Final Fantasy VIII?
I think it is.
Wow.
I'm just happy we've had stuff to talk about from 2023 because it's not happened often this year so far.
Yeah, there's not a ton of games. Like, I'm playing Octopath. Fire Emblem came and went. I played like 5 hours of it. I'll probably get back to it. There was that Bayonetta game. It's funny, the IGN 10s this year are Metroid Prime Remastered, the Dead Space remake, and the Dead Cells DLC. I saw a tweet about that this week. I'm like, one, the Dead Cells DLC is nowhere near 10. Come on. And then the other 2, very old loved games, which were remastered or remade in the case of Dead Space. So,
I'd be talking about the Jedi game right now if it hadn't been 150 gigabits to download it.
And look, I will say, I really like Metroid Prime, and I really think that Metroid Prime Remastered is a solid job, but that's not a 10 out of 10. Like, it's just... I can see from a mile away the issues that the way that the level design in that game exists, both in 2001 or 2002 and in 2023. It's just not.
When you grade a remake, are you grading it for it as a game in its own entity, or are you grading it as a restoration and improvement of an original?
I think it could be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think it might
also
just
depends
depend
if you had played the original.
Yeah, like something like Alive Alive, for example. I think you're grading that more on just the fact you grade putting on a bunch of things, like the fact that this thing that wasn't available to like basically anyone before and now has this 2.5 octopath.
And that was Garrett's whole personality.
It is. Until Xenoblade took over. If it wasn't for Xenoblade,
yeah, that's true.
My entire personality would still be Live Alive.
Yeah, I love it. He's just campaigning all year. He's like, this needs to be Game of the Year, and he plays Xenoblade, and he's like, I don't care about this shit anymore.
Just abandoned it at the last minute.
Because I like the Advance Wars remake, which I've not got to yet, but I think that's just basically like it's a visual overhaul, and that's pretty much it. Maybe it's got a couple of quality of life features where, something like say the Wind Waker remake, which just basically upped the bloom by 15%. But the thing it did with that is it fixed the Triforce quest at the end, which in the original Wind Waker is just a fucking slog. And they streamline a lot of that. It's still not great, and it's still a case of you can see where there should have probably been like another dungeon or 2, but for time constraints they had to do this. So I think it just depends on the remake or the remaster for you to kind of look at the angle you want to approach it from.
You know what's the one 2023 game that has weirdly piqued my interest, but I haven't gotten to yet? Dead Island 2.
Yeah, I've been seeing some people saying some real good things about that.
And it's not even like saying the good things, it's the particular good things they're saying. Because if you've been on twitch.tv/BarryLad, who loves his plugs on this show. We plug him too much. We have to take him down a peg, but that's what Game of the Year is for. But there has been much lamenting the death of the B game, where it's like the cool, interesting B game that was never meant to break out of cult status, but does a bunch of fun, cool things. And everything I hear about the Dead Island game makes it sound like this weird, off-kilter, systemic game that has a bunch of like those B game ideas stuffed into it, where they're just like, let's just do some stuff because it's fun, and we are not really concerned with it adding up to this like big blockbuster roller coaster AAA experience. We're just making wacky shit we think is fun. And that seems to be where that game has landed. And I think it has encouraged me to, I think I will at least try it.
Garrett, the other thing you have been playing on your quest to, I guess, go through all of the Final Fantasy games, you're on to Final Fantasy 3.
Yes, which I have finished. Which I was talking about how Final Fantasy 2 is like, you know, weird, doing new ideas, trying stuff. This is the most like, we just made another Final Fantasy. This is like, we have no ideas. There's some like small stuff. It's like, oh, this is where the job system is kind of properly introduced and all your characters have different jobs, and that's kind of cool. And I think the big thing that probably would have been mind-blowing in like the NES era is like, this is the first game that has multiple world maps. Where it's like, you do go to a world map, you get the airship, and you can fly off of your world map onto like a bigger world map, and you can even go under the ocean for like a third world map. So I think like that would have been really cool and mind-blowing when this came out. It's like, oh my god, there's 2 worlds in my Final Fantasy game as opposed to just 1. But given they pulled that gimmick, and I think all of the other Super Nintendo games, they do it in 4 and 6 anyway. Oh yeah, they do it in 5. So yeah, they then do that gimmick in every game subsequent, and then haven't done it since.
It makes you realize how much Pokemon ripped from Final Fantasy, because they did that gimmick in Gold and Silver where they were like, hey, remember this world? It's the original one from the other game. Here's a whole other world for you to go and play around in.
Yeah, and it was awesome, but they never did it again.
Yeah, I know.
I was mad that they never did that again, because everyone loved, like, that's the thing that makes that generation, I think, better than most, in that there is just this essentially a second game tacked onto the back of it, and everyone's like, that's so cool, and they've never done it since. Drives me nuts.
No, and they came out so soon after the original games as well. It just, bizarre. What? I would love a game where you could just go around to all the different regions and just complete all of the different Pokemon Quest things. How good would that be? That
would be a cool way to like remake those games, other than just churn them out and remake them, because you could just make the one that you release Kanto, and then a year later you release Johto, and then a year later and it's a living game in that sense. Because I don't think people have like talked about them potentially doing like an MMO Pokemon game, which I don't think they'd ever go near. But like that idea of you buy into Kanto and you spend $30 the next year to get Johto, and $30 the next, so on and so forth. I think everyone would do that. It would even just, if it looked like, you know, I can't remember who shared the HD 2D Pokemon clip in our group chat recently. Mark raises his hand. If that was how they did like HD 2D Pokemon, that would be so cool. Do that. They could make money in so many ways that they're not making money, which is funny given like Pokemon is the most cynically monetized thing in the history of existence.
Yeah, guys, did I ever mention how Niantic are completely ruining Pokemon?
Once or twice, passing comments. Do you know Final Fantasy 3 was actually the first Final Fantasy game I ever played?
The DS version?
It was the 2006 DS version, yeah. I have no fucking idea what compelled me to pick it up, but I was just like, you know, I guess I need to play one of these at some point. So I played that for about, I'd say 45 minutes, and never played it again.
It's the only one I haven't finished until this week when I finished it, because I got to the final dungeon. It's surprisingly hard, and the console versions of the Pixel remasters have a system where you can get up to four times experience and up to 4 times money at the end of every fight. So basically it's an easy mode, and I was like, I'm just going to coast on through it. And even then I was like, this is actually a little harder than it should be, given I have a 4 times experience boost turned on. But yeah, I got to the final dungeon in the DS version, because that was the first time it was released in the West, and yeah, I was just like, this is too hard. I can't beat this. I actually can't beat this. So I never beat it until this week.
I was like that the first time I played 6, and I couldn't beat the Kafka boss, and I was just really mad about it. And then I went back like a year or 2 later, and I was like, oh, this is actually not that bad.
You gained experience yourself in real life and then transferred it across to the game.
Yeah, I'm like Scott Pilgrim. I was like, Jack gained the power of self-respect, and then I went back and played it, and you know what? I was good enough all along.
How long Final Fantasy 2 and Final Fantasy 3, how long were the campaigns?
Playing the Pixel remaster versions, they were both like 8 to 10 hours.
That's not too bad.
Which is substantially shorter than it would be in the NES version.
Yeah.
Garrett, how are you going to fit like 7 onwards in?
I am absolutely not on pace to be able to play through all of these games in time. Like I have, that's out June 16th, I think, which is a little over 6 weeks away, closer to 7. So I've 7 weeks.
Me to get to 8. Like, can you get to 8? I've never had a conversation with you about 8.
I won't play 7 because I played that recently, so I'm going to skip 7. But the rest, I think I'll definitely get to 8 because I'll definitely do all the pixel remasters, and then 8 will be next. So I will at least do 8.
The version of 8 on the Switch as well looks surprisingly nice.
Yeah, they make all the faces look nice because there was that famous "you're the best looking person at this party" line, and then he has that nondescript, completely pixelated face that you can't make out any features from, and now you can actually make out his face. So it ruined the meme.
The one thing you would say about that is that the FMVs in that game are exceptional. It's like they spent a lot of the budget on those FMVs. And then the graphics not so much, but hey,
because that was their thing. It's like, because when you watch Final Fantasy Spirits Within, it's like terrible movie, but it looks amazing. Like,
I remember that being the talk of the town back. When was that? Like 2001 or so?
Yeah,
some time ago.
Yeah, I remember everyone would not shut the fuck up about that thing, and then it came out, and then I never heard anything about it again.
Well, it nearly bankrupt Square Enix Square and caused them to then merge. That's why they merged with Enix, because that film was such a colossal failure, and they lost so much money on it. They had to merge with Enix.
Why was it a colossal failure? Was it just because like people didn't actually want to go and see it, or was it just because it was a bad film?
Well,
no one to see it, man. And
I think because of how good it looked, it cost an insane amount of money.
Right. Yes, that makes sense.
So it wasn't like this thing that was like churned out on the cheap, and there's a small margin for error. If it flops, it flops, but it's not going to cause the company to lose a ton of money.
Yeah.
Whereas,
remember, it was 2001, right? So that's 22 years ago, Mark.
Yeah.
Conservatively estimate what the budget of that movie was.
I mean, I'd say like 40 million.
Keep going.
Oh Jesus! All right, 80.
Keep going.
Are you telling me it's got into triple figures?
Keep going.
Oh God, 120.
The budget was $137 million in 2001.
Me. That is. There are some poor business decisions that were being made there. Fuck me.
It made a respectable 85, but like Square Enix, or Square as they were at the time, could not afford to lose $52 million, and that's before we even factor in marketing.
Like, they should have been doing some sort of like, as you were coming into the cinema screen, they're like, give us a $5 and we'll, I don't know, like, give you an XP boost in the next Final Fantasy game or something to try and kind of recoup costs, because that is fuck.
Yes, harrowing. Yeah,
it even like it forced out like Sakaguchi. It's like he's the creator of Final Fantasy, the dude who basically built what Square is, and that film flopped so badly it's just like, we can't let you make things anymore after this, sorry.
Yeah, which is genuinely like horrible, isn't it? Like,
I might have to go and watch this film now. I'm curious.
Yeah, you should,
because I'm sure it still looks good. I'm sure it holds up really well,
mate. After Sakaguchi left, like, that was when things actually kind of started going downhill with the Final Fantasy, because he was exec producer all the way through like 10-2, I want to say, and they were starting. I think they were like most of the way through 12, but he didn't get a credit on 12. And then Final Fantasy has not been that good since then. So not only did the Spirits Within cost the company like having to merge and Sakaguchi's job, but also probably long-term cost Final Fantasy fans quality product, because they haven't really churned quality product out in a while now.
It basically single-handedly killed the identity of both Square and Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's all right. If Jeff Jarrett can come back to the Fed, I'm sure at some point he can come back to Square Enix.
But you know what? It links right back to Garfield, because Ving Rhames is also in the Final Fantasy Spirits Within movie. So there you go. And it has Perry Gilpin in it from Frasier. I do not remember her being in that movie. Oh, but also James Woods. Yeah.
Let's move on from that. I got two things this week. I thought that I would have Metal Gear Solid finished on this week's stream, but I got up to the Vulcan Raven fight, and that's taken me a little while. So I think I will have that finished on Monday's stream, so I'm hoping next week I can talk about Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, Dave will be
length.
back, and we can both just tell you how wrong you are about whatever your opinions are.
Hey, you will agree with about 50% of my opinions, and I'm hoping that the other 50% you will be respectful for the reason that I have those opinions.
Yeah.
Anyway,
unless it's about music, and I agree with about 90%.
Oh no, the music's fantastic. I have no issue with that. Right, so the two things I've been playing that are games that have come out from 2023. The first is Dredge, which comes to us by way of Black Salt Games, published by Team 17. This is a fishing game where you are in this kind of like this island, but this kind of area, the world that you're in is made up of like loads of little different islands and small like sea towns. And you are fishing and you're finding these kind of weird sort of like Lovecraftian type looking fish monsters. And there's this whole kind of story or backstory about a whole bunch of like fishing vessels and ships and crafts that have all ended up being shipwrecked for one reason or another. And there's this kind of, not to use this word again, but implication that there is something in the sea, something in the water, some sort of like creature or beast or whatever that is causing all of these shipwrecks. It's never explicitly said by name. It's just a lot of like kind of stories, and people have had experiences with like loved ones that have been lost at sea due to like these shipwrecks and whatnot. And so you, at the start of the game, the first cutscene is your ship ends up getting trashed, and you're stuck on this small town. At this small town, the mayor greets you, gives you a ship. You then go out to sea to collect some fish to make some money to basically pay off the loan for the ship. So this introduces you to the game, and the core mechanic is basically you have a day and night cycle. Time only moves when you take an action. So either if you're moving the ship, if you're fishing, or like the fishing is kind of split into different mini games depending on what you're fishing for. That is when time moves. So if you're stationary, time is not moving. Between the times of 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening, you can go anywhere you want. You can do whatever you want. You know, you've got nothing to worry about. But after 6 o'clock and onwards until 6 in the morning, as time starts to, day starts to get darker, if you are like out at sea, everything gets very foggy, you get very lost very quickly, and you have kind of like an eyeball that shows where the sort of time dial is, and that's your kind of panic meter. And as you start to panic more, you start to kind of like see, I don't know if they're hallucinations. I don't know what exactly is happening, but weird shit starts to happen. And I haven't stayed out at sea long enough to fully kind of like get a grasp of what the fuck is going on. I'm sure at some point the game will force me into a situation where that's going to happen. But for the most part at the moment, like the distance between where the first town you're in and the next town, it's not too far. So even if you are like somewhere, say like 5 o'clock in the evening, even if I get back at the next town by like sort of 7 or 6:30, it's not too late that I have, anything to worry about. I've yet to be out in the middle of the ocean at 3 o'clock in the morning to see, what happens. But the game is basically kind of like relying on this, like more what's kind of being implied more than what's actually showing. For the moment, at least. Again, I don't know if there is actually a giant sea creature that's going to come and trash my ship, but I guess that's kind of part of the tension that's building up with that. The game works on a fairly kind of basic gameplay loop of you go out to sea, you pick up fish, you pick up resources, there's wood, there's cloth, blah, blah, blah. You bring them back to the town, you sell the fish, you use that money along with whatever kind of resources you can use to upgrade. There are different people that you meet, and they're on different islands as well. So, one island has this person who will help you kind of build up your ship. There's a person on another island who has like trinkets that you pick up that you can sell to make more money. And it is just this kind of thing of like, kind of bit by bit, you are exploring these different islands. You're finding different people to talk to that have different quests. So you're going to accomplish these kind of mini quests, whether it's find a certain amount of fish, find this trinket that's been lost. And I'm really enjoying the feel of this game. I do think that if you're someone that kind kind of gets bored very quickly with a gameplay loop that's doing kind of a similar thing, but kind of giving you piece by piece kind of the next part of what's happening. I think that you might get a little bit kind of bored of this pretty quickly. But for me, like this kind of scratches a certain kind of itch I have for the type of games that I like, where I can just go at my own pace, and I'm happy on over the course of 2 weeks in game. I'm happy even if I don't get any further out than like the bay that I'm in, and I can just spend that time building up my ship and doing whatever else. That works for me. I've got no issue with that. But I think that the gameplay loop is moreish enough that you do want to go out and you want to explore the other islands and find it, because I think there's like 125 different types of fish that you can find, and the fishing mechanic is basically like when a fish is ready to be caught, there's a circle on the screen, and there are like kind of little green sections. If you think like a kind of Mario Golf or something, and if you hit in the green sections, it speeds up the time that you're reeling the fish in, which makes you more effective in terms of how much more time you have out during the day. And
can I question, like, I really cannot be bothered with fishing mechanics in games anymore. Is this fun? Like, is it,
well,
or is it grindy?
The fishing mechanics, I mean, so like if you're catching a fish, the actual mechanics of that take no more than about 5 seconds.
Is it really annoying?
Not really, no, because again, it's not like, it's not like I can't. Jack, you haven't played Stardew Valley, right?
I should, but I know it might consume my life, so I've steered clear.
Garrett?
Yeah, and I hate it in Stardew, and I hate it in all games. Reeling in fish in every game is terrible. So that's the reason I asked the question. So this is like the complete antithesis of that, where you could be there for fucking minutes on an end doing the fishing mechanic in Stardew Valley. This is the complete opposite of that. No fish that you go for is going to take any more than about 5 seconds. And in fairness, you're trying to fish the fish as quickly as possible because when you are fishing, that is taking up the time of your day cycle. So you are trying to actually get the fish in as quickly as possible. So nothing that you fish for takes more than, and that isn't really the kind of core proponent of the game. It's more about like the world that you're in and the sort of day and night cycle. So the actual fishing mechanic is not like, that doesn't become tedious at all as far as I'm concerned. And the way that you kind of dredge up dredge wood and other things, like the mechanic is slightly different, so it does kind of mix it up at least a little bit with that as well. But what was the other thing I was going to talk about with the game? Scary monsters.
No. Anything cool while dredging?
No, not the I mean, again, like the design of the fish, like some of the kind of like more monstrous ones, they look pretty cool. That's the other thing I was going to mention. So your storage that you have, you've got your kind of onboard vessel, and then you have like, your storage back at the bay as well. Your onboard vessel, it's kind of done in that sort of like Resident Evil style suitcase, where you actually have to kind of fit them like kind of Tetramino style into blocks. And the vessel itself like has like a couple of squares that are made up for your fishing rods, and a couple of squares that are made up for your engine, and then you've got the rest of the empty space that's made up for the fish. And different fish, one fish might have a shape that's like 2 squares vertical, which you can swap vertical and horizontal. There's another fish that is like a kind of corner piece that's like an L shape, like a small L shape. And you have different fish like that. So as you're fishing, you're trying to find a way to fit these all into the vessel to then bring them back to the bay. So that kind of like makes you sort of think how to kind of compartmentalize the space to fit as many fish in as possible, along with like the other things that you're picking up as well. And I think that works well. That kind of, you're not just kind of endlessly grinding. There is only a finite amount that you can get every day, which kind of keeps the tension up a bit, where you're looking at the time thinking, okay, it's 4 o'clock, I can maybe get one more fish, then I need to get back to the bay before it hits 6 o'clock. I know this is a game that's been spoken about a fair bit this year, so I intend to finish it, and if you need more of a sell job at that point, I'll let you know, because I know Dave is interested, I know Barry is interested. I'll let you know if you're more interested in a couple of weeks.
It's on everything, isn't it?
It is, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S.
Is it on Game Pass?
It's not on Game Pass, no.
Oh, I mean, like, if it was on Game Pass, I'd be downloading it right now.
I'd be saying have a look at it right now, but alas, it's not. Something that is on Game Pass, though, that I've been playing this week is a game called Cassette Beasts. Have either of you two heard of this or seen anything about it?
No.
I've heard of cassettes, and I've heard of beasts, but the combination of the two, I've never imagined.
So, Cassette Beasts is a game about going into a big open world and collecting monsters, of which I think this game has about 120, which you can then use those monsters to fight against other monsters.
120 even isn't even as many as there were in like the first Pokemon. Come on.
I might be wrong with. I don't know the exact number specifically. I can't find it. It's somewhere around that region anyway.
So every year there's like a headline in every video game like outlet, this is the Pokemon killer, or this is the new Pokemon game you have to play. Like Temtem was it for a while. I played Koromon for a while last year, which was like a really nice, pleasant game, but I'm just like, if I wanted to play Pokemon, I'd play Pokemon. And is this that? Is this year's like, here's the new Pokemon game that's better than Pokemon, and you play it for 15 minutes, you're like, all right.
So I never touched Temtem. I've never really actually spent any time with any of the sort of like takes on the Pokemon formula. I'm enjoying this. I think that it has enough things about it where obviously look, there are so many mechanics that are dyed in the wool when it comes to Pokemon that if you try and do anything that isn't that and are trying to be a Pokemon game, you're probably not a Pokemon game at that point. So, like, you know, yes, you're catching these monsters. The thing I like about this game is I like the approach that it has in terms of the world and the setup. So, the way that you catch these monsters is that you have a cassette tape, and you actually, like, when you want to catch a Pokemon, you are using your cassette tape to actually record this monster onto the cassette tape, and then you don't actually, like, when you're fighting, you're not actually like throwing out the monster. You're actually transforming into the monster by playing the cassette, and then, you know, when that monster is like fainted, if you will, you turn back into your human form, and you actually have your own life bar as well. So there's technically 2 life bars to work with, the monsters and your own. And so then you can, obviously, it still, you know, lets you switch between I keep wanting to say Pokemon, but I'm gonna have to say Cassette Beasts.
Just call them Pokemon.
All right, fine.
Just call them Mons.
Well, Mons. All right, we'll settle with Mons. Cassette Mons.
Is there a rap that tells you all of the name of the Cassette Beasts?
Yeah.
Not yet, no, not that I've seen. But I do like the soundtrack.
The cassettes play music.
The cassettes play the actual monsters.
And I will say, record like the monsters, but 10 seconds after the DJ finishes talking, so you have the whole monster, but without the DJ bit. Is that what happens in the game?
No, there's no.
The deep cut.
Too deep, too deep for me.
Only 90s kids will remember this.
Yeah. I'm going to go write a BuzzFeed article. I'll just excuse myself from the rest of this podcast.
But one of the things that I do like about it is that, so obviously, you know, you have cassette mons of different...
Just call them Pokemon, fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it, let's call them Pokemon. You have Pokemon that have different types. And so, like, you've got some that, obviously, yeah, fine. Instead of electric, we have lightning Pokemon, and instead of...
Oh, Jesus. It's not even naked, is it?
Yeah,
the fact that they've just copied this.
But they have some others as well. So you've got, like, plastic.
What's Plastic Week 2?
What's that?
Fire, surely.
What's Plastic Week 2?
Oh, yeah, but this is the thing, right? This is what's really interesting. So you've got a plastic Pokemon. If you use a fire attack on the plastic Pokemon, it then turns into a poison Pokemon because the plastic fumes that come off of it transform it into a poison Pokemon.
That sounds both cool and confusing.
It's really not. It's actually very simple. But it does a bunch of things like this. So, like, if you use a fire attack against an air type, it's an air type Pokemon, it creates like a sort of like a draft or something that then actually creates a barrier for that Pokemon. So you have like loads of little bits like this where it's not just, you know, obviously you using the rock, paper, scissors mechanic. The actual attacks that you do can have implications where they change the type.
It's a turn-based RPG, though, right?
It is a turn-based RPG, yes.
So how does something like that work, like within that system?
Well, because that's the system you're doing it in. So if you do
if that air, like you said, a barrier of air goes up, then what does that do within like the turn-based RPG mechanics?
Oh, it creates like a shield for the air Pokemon, so it gives them like a barrier for like the next 2 or 3 attacks, that sort of thing.
Cool.
The actual game itself, you have a partner with you, so like during the game, like pretty much all kind of battles are like 2v2 or 2v3 or 2v4, which also means that this game as well is also, if technically you can play it as a 2-player game if you want. I don't know how that works exactly, but I presume just your partner plays as the second character, but you've always got someone with you. The world itself is a 2.5D game. It doesn't look like an Octopath Traveler, but if you were to kind of think of what a Pokemon remake doing a 2.5D thing that may have come along like 10 years ago, I guess this kind of has a sort of similar vibe to it. It does have a kind of 2.5D pixel art sort of look to it. I think it does look really nice.
Looking at screenshots, it looks like a DS era Pokemon game.
A little bit, yeah, but it's not quite as top down. It is sort of like kind of like it's like a 2.5D, but it is more 3D, 2.7D. There we go. We'll go with that.
What the fuck is happening here?
I think the soundtrack is really solid. It's quite surprising, actually. It's got quite a mix of a few things. There are points where you're in a cafe and there's like this sort of Phoebe Bridgers sort of sounding fucking thing playing in the background that I wasn't expecting. It's quite diverse. I don't know. I think it's all right. I'm enjoying my time with it enough that I've put about an hour and a half to 2 hours in, and I want to spend more time with it. It's on PC Game Pass specifically. It's not on the console Game Pass, which is annoying. I don't know why that is. Well, actually, it's coming to consoles in spring 2023, so I guess, at some point soon it should come to
consoles. Not spring 2023.
There's not much longer left of spring 2023.
Well, no, in fairness, like, spring ends when? Like, end of May?
Technically start of June if you're being like seasons rather than months.
Yeah, but also, Mark, that May ends in like a month, man.
I guess that's true. I don't know what their development cycle looks like. I think this game is really impressive for the fact as well it's made by 2 people. That is something that blows my fucking mind, because this is a fairly like big, open, expansive world.
One of them to like control C Pokemon and the other one to control V Pokemon.
There you go.
I'm looking through screenshots and I'm like having those endless conflicting emotions where I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool that like the menu is a cassette and all the options are like the buttons on the cassette, and then I see like one of the menus, it's like, that's just fucking Pokemon. Like, it's just
look, there is a lot of this game that is just Pokemon, but I do think that everything that is in this game that is just Pokemon, they do contextualize it in a way to fit the theme of this world.
Oh my God, I've just seen the world. Like, this is just
it's a
Pokemon,
DS Pokemon game.
It really is. This is insane. How have they got away with this?
Look, Pokemon don't have a trademark on the mechanics of a Pokemon game.
But the look and feel a little bit.
Look at the battles. Have you seen what the battles look like?
I don't think they have a trademark on that.
Oh my God.
There's like a Banshee has evolved into like wool something. It's like, God, it's a Pokemon.
There's one here that looks like a Kecleon, but it's blue and it has like a weird hat on.
I will say, I think a lot of the designs in this game are far more interesting than the designs in Violet and Scarlet. Just gonna put that out there.
They're the same thing.
Yeah, it's not massively different, mate, is it?
Just Pokemon. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, as I said, that one of these comes a year and they're all pretty good. But it's just Pokemon.
Look, there's a Pokemon called Traffic Crab, which is a crab that has a traffic cone on its head.
I mean, for fuck's sake, man. There's also a Pokemon I've just seen called Cat 5, which appears to have a cat's body with a microwave for a head and like 2 USB cables for tails. What? There's also like a weird ninja thing called Kirikuri, which is has a upside down flower pot for a head and like a dartboard on one arm and a kendo stick on the other arm.
They've gone for it. They've gone for it with some of the designs.
I mean, they've gone for it by just saying, let's just do what Pokemon did all those years ago.
I will say the thing that is probably the most different is the pacing of like the open world, because you've got like the central hub, the kind of main town that you're in, and you're going out and you're going to like, you have different quests, you have different people to go and meet. but you're always coming back to the central hub, which is your kind of focal point, which obviously compared to, like most Pokemon games, where you're going from town to town and, beating the gyms and whatnot, this is doing so like that the kind of main story campaign, your kind of purpose is radically different to Pokemon games. Like that, you're not beating gym leaders. There are like, kind of, so for, one of the storylines is that at kind of near to the start of the game, you come across two people that are having an argument. One of the guys is from
called Cash and Wisty by any chance?
I think so. I don't remember, but you have your main guy who is like defending the town.
It's just got miles over it.
I don't know. And you got these two people that look sort of like very kind of goth, vampiric. You get the impression that they're actually vampires. Turns out that they're actually real estate agents, and they're trying to take over the town. And there's a whole kind of anti-capitalist sort of stance to it, which I quite enjoyed. So
do they get defeated and then disappear over the horizon while blasting off?
No.
A chance again.
No, they don't do that. But you have like 8 of these buildings that are out in the world, so you need to go find the 8 buildings and like defeat them.
I wonder why it's 8. I wonder where they came up with 8.
Yeah, why would it be 8, Mark? Like, what does that remind you of?
Look. I'm not here to deal with your slander and this pettiness, all right? I think this is an interesting game.
I'm sure it's a good Pokemon clone, but it's a Pokemon clone.
Well, you know what?
You go out into the open world and there's 8 buildings you have to go to that unlock a further quest.
I am enjoying this more than my time with Violet and Scarlet, so I'm just fucking putting out there.
That's because you are a broken person.
No, it's because Violet or Scarlet, whichever one I had, was a bang average game.
It's also a broken game, but that doesn't help.
And a fucking broken game, yes. Anyway, that's me for this week. Jack, do you have anything?
Like I said, a Jedi game. I wanted to play it for a couple of hours before we casted today, and I should have pre-ordered it, but I didn't. I was like, just download it. Like, it's like coming into my last hour of work. I'm thinking, this will be maybe like half an hour tops or whatever, so I'll do it now. It's 150 gigabytes. Which is just like, oh my god.
4K so textures, my friend. They pack a punch these days.
So right now, the only context that I have for the Jedi game is just, it's 150 gigabytes, which is not a review, and I will play it. We have a 3-day weekend here, so when I'm not watching It's Always Sunny, I will be playing this game, and I will have a full take next weekend.
They've already issued an apology for it.
Why is that?
For being 150 gigs?
No, not that. Though apparently the PC performance in particular is dire. So
yeah, I've seen like the Steam basically playing it on Steam Deck is just not worth it at the moment.
Yeah, they say it's not supported. Like they're pretty open about that. It's not supported on Steam Deck, but apparently even just general like high end PCs can't run this thing, and apparently console performance isn't great either. So they expressly issued an apology for the PC performance, but it's not great that you already have one of those. It's not a notes app statement, but one of those image statements dropped on Twitter on your launch day.
Yeah.
The cyberpunk, yellow background going, we here at Cyberpunk want to apologise for all of the T-posing and dicks clipping through trousers.
But it's interesting because I did see that Jason Schreier was like, hey, I played this thing through and I hadn't had any issues at all. So, yeah, I'm like...
He's in the pocket of big Star Wars.
Obviously, Disney, yeah. No, I wonder if it's just like, the high-end players are really just trying to push this thing as hard as they can, and, maybe it's just not optimized for that, but, like, I wonder if you was to play it on, like, medium settings, if you could see the thing through. Obviously, if you got, a fucking $5,000 rig, you want to try and get as much out of this as you can, but... though again, if the console versions are having issues, that's a problem. That's not good.
I know I was reading the Waypoint review, which was like, this game was a bit of a disaster performance-wise in the review window I had it. And then they dropped a day one patch that fixed a lot of it. So I don't know what to tell you. The review was like an existential crisis on what you even do. Given like my impressions of the game are now rendered null and void. So I don't know.
I mean, honestly, I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often because of day one patches at this point.
Games are just impossible to make now. I've come to the conclusion.
Yeah, I'm realizing this. They're not easy.
They're not though, because like the standards just disappeared. Like before you had to make a game go gold and put it on a disc, which meant and no one had any way of updating it, so it meant it had to actually work. A very minimum.
I mean, even then, you can go back to the PS1 and and the N64, and if you can get like an original version of the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, you've made it.
Yeah. But I think now that standard doesn't exist, so people just do whatever. They're like, well, this is our launch date. It's a piece of shit. Like Cyberpunk is the biggest example, obviously, but it's just it's a de rigueur now, isn't it? The games come out broken and shitty, which is sad. I think.
And like the phrasing of the statements is always funny. It's like, that does not meet our standards. It was specifically the language used in the Star Wars one. It's like, you released it.
Yeah,
like
it's a bit like you go to a restaurant and it's like, well, you haven't cooked this, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't meet our standards, but here it is.
You have served it to me.
You're just giving me it.
As if it is complete and done.
The cheese isn't melted on this pizza. I don't know what to do with this. It sucks that is what the world we live in now, but it's almost you just like expect it now.
Just like, to what degree will it be on fire?
Yeah. How much did that set you back, Jack?
What, the pizza that I bought?
No.
Well, let me tell you, Mark, it was very, very reasonably priced. It was like $59.99 or something.
Okay, all right.
Something in that. I don't know.
You just click buy and just like, yeah, whatever. I am curious to know, because I only played, I'd say I played about 5 or 6 hours of Fallen Order, because it was on Game, I think it's still on Game Pass through the EA thing.
Yeah, I preferred Fallen Order SVU, I have to say. Much better game.
I thought it was okay, but I don't say it totally grabbed me, but yeah. I look forward to seeing what you're saying.
For me, it had what I call the Cassette Beasts problem, where I thought it was overly derivative of other games. Which is my actual take, but I also wrapped it in a shot at Cassette Beasts.
There you go. No, do you know what? Fair play, Garrett. Fair play.
Thank you.
Let us jump over.
Shares in Cassette Beasts, everyone. Just wanted to let you know. Full transparency.
I only have shares in Unilever, thank you very much. That's where all the money is. Let's jump over into the news. We've got 3 bits of news this week. First of all, you may have heard that the UK have blocked the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. This has come after a months-long investigation. The decision by the UK's Competition and Markets Authority prevents Microsoft from buying the publisher behind Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush, yada yada yada. Follows earlier concerns it would lead to an unfair impact on arch-rival PlayStation. Sorry, Jack.
I was going to say, but Mark, like, they didn't ban it. They took all the details of the deal, right? They put it in a sort of medium-sized suitcase and deported it to Rwanda. So it's like, that's what happened.
Today's decision stems from the CMA's concerns over the deal's proposed impact on the cloud gaming sector. In today's final report, the CMA said Microsoft's ownership of Activision Blizzard risked stifling competition in this growing market. Now, Let's just kind of focus in on this for a second here. Growing market, would that include Google Stadia, which is already dead?
Yeah, that's the thing. That
Amazon Luna?
I was looking at this thing, and I'm like, I wasn't super shocked that it was shot down. But then I saw the reason. I'm like, what the fuck? like, if you were to say Microsoft buying Activision is bad for games, I would be like, yes, fair point. If you're like, we're shooting this down because it's going to be bad for cloud gaming, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, the problem is the work experience person in that government department was the one who did that statement, Garrett. They were just like, clearly we're going to block this because Sony are going to probably... Whoever has gotten to the government and decided to give them the most money or, like for their
Look, fucking Jim Ryan probably flew to the UK specifically, sat around with someone at number 10 and went, we're not having this. Well, the CMA stated that Microsoft's current large share of the global cloud gaming market was already benefiting from its ownership of Xbox, Windows, and cloud infrastructure Azure. I should probably add on to that. It's also because of the failings of other tech companies for not being able to get their shit together, but, I digress.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with them owning Activision Blizzard does not change Microsoft's stranglehold on that market. They still have the best technology. No. They still have that stranglehold. It's stupid.
They say that the cloud allows UK gamers to avoid buying expensive gaming consoles and PCs. And
Because of who? Because of who? Because they offer cloud on Game Pass. It's like, because of Microsoft offering this product to them, we are going to stop you from buying a different company and offering them Call of Duty on this product too? That makes no sense.
Nope.
It's so stupid. Like, again, if you were to say this is bad for games, them buying this is bad for the genre, like the entire industry, thumbs up, that is true. It's a factual statement on which you can shoot down a deal like this. But being like, oh, because the UK consumers are getting all of their cloud games from Microsoft already, we will not allow them to offer different cloud games. It's like, oh, you stupid idiots.
Like, I can only imagine that there has to be a tactical reason for why CMA have gone for this approach.
Money from Sony.
Yeah, money. Sony have paid them money to block the deal.
Is it as cynical as that? Well, so, like, Microsoft submitted a proposal to address the CMA's concerns, the regulator notes, though its remedies did not go far enough. A major sticking point was that the CMA decided Microsoft's much-touted 10-year deals with other cloud gaming companies were behavioural remedies that could contain loopholes and would require ongoing enforcement. Well, that's just fucking everything online anyway. Like, everything is constantly changing. Like, that I don't see how that is any more relevant to this than it is to any other fucking agreement that exists, but whatever.
Yeah, the internet is the Wild West. It always has been. They've tried to, like, clean it up a little bit, but realistically, you don't have to go further to just go slightly out of the town and still find all of the Wild West things that you always could do and continue to do, I suppose.
You know how it actually reads as? It's like, Microsoft's deal here will cause us to have to do more regulatory work, and therefore we would like not to do that, so no.
And we are too busy dealing with this whole immigration thing, which actually doesn't exist, but you know what, it's a good talking point, distracts from, like, the real issues in the country at the moment. It's wild. I thought that the UK could block it. I did not think it would be for these reasons. I mean,
like, all of the quotes are about cloud. None of it is about the modding Activision Blizzard. It's all about cloud game. What is going on? I'm so confused.
And the thing is right, to get really fucking cynical, the whole reason Microsoft tried to buy Activision Blizzard, I don't think it has anything to do with Activision and Blizzard. It's to do with King, because that's where all the money is. Yeah, look, Call of Duty is making, a nice kind of tidy profit every year, but King, that mobile money, that is their, like, kind of Epic Games Fortnite cash cow. Like, you have that money, you can do whatever the fuck. Not that Microsoft are exactly struggling for money as it is at the moment, but you have that money coming in, you can do whatever the fuck you want at that point going forward. Now that hasn't happened.
Microsoft have been monopolizing businesses for like 35 years, man.
Yeah. Oh, like, yeah, of course.
This is their playbook. There was a Simpsons joke in, like, the mid-90s where Homer started a computer company and Bill Gates was like, go and buy him out, and he got some hired goons to smash up all of Homer's stuff and gave him some money and then just walked off into the night. Like, they at first they monopolize, they buy Activision Blizzard, they move all the stuff, and they're like, yeah, it's going to be freely available, and then they gradually normalize it not being freely available on other platforms, and then there you go, done.
Yeah, but, like, if you went into, like, the negotiations for the Activision Blizzard and, like, why I assume there are proposal docs for buying that within Microsoft, I guarantee, like, cloud wasn't really one of the reasons.
Of course it wasn't.
Like, I really don't think this company is like, this will cement our position in the cloud market. Like, that's not an incentive for them buying this company, and yet it's the reason it's been turned. It's and
again, it isn't Xbox and Microsoft doing what they've been doing to solidify their position in the cloud market. It was Google Stadia dying on its arse that fucking did that. It's it's. God, I had one other point, but it's flown by, so I guess it doesn't matter now. I don't know. That was the other thing as well. Like, the moment that this came out, within, a day, you had articles coming out about, well, who can Microsoft buy now? And it's like, well, how about they just take that money and just, invest it in a bunch of, like, studios that either they have or, publish, all of these kind of smaller games and just do that. You have the money. You don't have to buy Activision Blizzard. You got all these other studios doing these really weird, interesting little things. How about that? Does that work? Obviously, that won't be the case. They'll probably, I don't know, fucking...
Yeah, and they will appeal, so we'll see how that goes. And I know they did announce another cloud, one of those 10-year deals today, so they're still soldiering along, but this will push, obviously, the timeline of them closing that deal back considerably.
So I'm sure it won't be the last time that we talk about this year. Garrett, over to you for the next piece of really unfortunate news.
Yeah, and the reoccurring trend of video game publications either downsizing or, in this case, completely closing down. Vice is shutting down its games publication, Waypoint. The news came via Twitter from senior writer Patrick Klepek. The team, myself included, have been terminated by Vice, and our final day running the website, the podcast, and the streams will come to an end on June 2nd. This comes as like a broader restructuring of Vice, as they're shutting down their entire fucking news division, which I believe they're focusing more on Huffington Post as their news outlet, and then the others are like entertainment pieces. I don't know. I don't understand news media. Apparently neither does Vice, but yeah, that's another outlet gone to the wind.
Yeah, it sucks. I think that it's part of the wider Vice thing, like you say, but it's just a worrying trend of like online news companies, because I know they're pretty gentle, but BuzzFeed cut a bunch of people recently, and some of the major papers in America have cut back on people, like Washington Post, and then ABC News is expecting to do job cuts. NPR, I think, cut a bunch of people. So it's just like a real, just massive cull in news media at the moment, and I find it odd, like, how are people then getting their news? Are they getting it from like one or two different sources, and a lot of these companies just not making any money? Is it because no one wants to advertise with them, and the ad companies are taking their dime elsewhere, therefore they can't afford to keep their businesses open? Like, what is going on in media at the moment? And I don't... It just, from the outside looking in, it seems very strange. But yeah, people I think are kind of essentially saying that companies now, marketing wise, are just gonna spend their money on like Google or Meta, because those are the two big sites that everybody uses all the time,
and then everything will move and they'll all be fucked, because that's always how it works. That's every time. It's like, it's the pivot to video. It's the same stuff. It's like, we have decided this is the single strategy. It's like a diversified approach. Fuck no. We're going all in on these handful of things, and the environment will shift, because it's the internet, and the environment shifts every 6 months. And then suddenly a bunch of people will lose their jobs again, because it's like, we did this big pivot, it didn't work, and us who developed the strategy takes the blame? No. Let's lay off some new staff, let's restructure a bunch of things, and it's all their fault. And like, it is, I think we are seeing the slow death of like advertising driving the internet. It's because like that has been the broad model of the internet basically for as long as the internet has been a popular thing, that like the way you monetize it is advertising, and everything is free, but everything is ad supported. And I think the dollars for that are increasingly dwindling, and we'll see a larger shift toward direct like fan support, direct like subscription services, people who use a thing paying directly for a thing, as opposed to, and I think broadly that'll probably be better in both the sustainability of the outlets, and I think the trustworthiness of the outlets, in that like if people are paying dollars and cents for it directly instead of it being financed elsewhere, there is more of an incentive then to serve something that serves the people who are paying you, as opposed to just maximum traffic, maximum ad dollars, which is the incentive now.
I do think that the issue that you have with that is you can run into and I guess this can happen anyway if you're only following certain outlets, but you can run into that kind of echo chamber sort of thing where you are focusing on the one outlet, and hey, even if it's like, and I love the work of Waypoint. It was the one gaming podcast other than my own that I would listen to every week, because I think that, like Patrick Klepek, Ren, like I feel like those people were giving the most interesting like discussion when it comes to games, and not just to like this game is good because X, Y, and Z, but why is it good? Like the really kind of get into that next layer underneath that I find really interesting, really fascinating, and I do a very poor job of myself trying to replicate every week. But they're the kind of people that I would look up to and listen to because of the way that they would talk about games. And, for them to be gone, it is, for me, I think, like, okay, what do I have left now? As much as I love Jeff Gerstmann, I can't listen to him for 3.5 hours talk to himself every week. Gerstmann works for me when he's playing off of other people, and not doing a 3.5 hour podcast every week. I cannot do that. And because he doesn't put fucking notes or chapters on his podcasts as well, there's another thing that I like about the Waypoint show, and it's a thing that I like about our podcast. And Nextlander does this as well. By hey, I don't have a time to listen to the whole show, but you've put chapters on there. I can go and bounce to this one specific thing that I want to find out about. Boom, it's there. I wish all podcasts would do that, and
to extol the virtues of it for a moment. Earlier today, I was like, I would like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons in this episode, but I didn't listen to the episode where Jack did. And it took me 2 minutes to find, because it's like, that's the episode, that's the timestamp, boom.
Yeah, exactly. It pays off. So, and it sucks for these people, because I do think that all of the people that have been working for Waypoint are some of the most talented kind of game critics out there. I do think that of the small kind of like windows of opportunities and spaces that are left, if these people wanted to find work, whether it's in the media industry or actually in like game design, I think they'll be okay.
And like these people have the audience to launch their own thing.
Of course.
In the same way Jeff Gertzman did and launched his own thing, and I imagine he's doing pretty darn fine. Like if they launched a Patreon supported outlet in the morning, I think they'd be perfectly fine.
But this is the thing as well, as you kind of talk about, there's only so many dollars to go around, and the kind of the romanticism of like, I want to support this specific product here, I'm going to give this, like however many dollars a month, whatever, that's fine. But if you've got like 5 outlets that are doing this thing, and they're all like $5 a month, that's 25 quid.
On top of like streaming services and all the other like digital nonsense that like is dollars and cents coming out of your pocket.
A couple of months ago, I massively cut back on a bunch of Patreons that I was on for, even though I like the podcasts, I was like, what benefit am I getting for the additional content shows that a lot of the time, like I might not even listen to because I wouldn't get time to listen to, or, just giving people money is fine. I like to support the people that, make content that I really enjoy, but so at the same time, like Garrett said, you start looking at your bank account, you see that Patreon statement coming out there, and you're like, it's quite a lot of money coming out of my account on top of like Netflix and Disney and Xbox Game Pass and all of that. It's the sort of thing that's like, well, you start thinking about getting mortgages and doing bits and pieces like that. You're like, man, I really need to cut back on my outgoings, and oftentimes these are the first things to go. But yeah, I think it's funny, Garrett, when you were like, everyone's going to move towards the independent thing or whatever. How many years do you think it is before people see a few independent like outlets doing really, really well, and then a big company decides to go in and buy a couple of them up again?
Well, yeah, that was the giant bomb thing, wasn't it? It's like, independent outlet doing really well, bought up, and then everyone's miserable over time. It's like the poor souls. That will be the thing.
Circle, the snake that eats itself.
Yeah, and it'll happen over and over. And like, in order to entice those people back, they'll have to start giving them money, because all of a sudden all these outlets don't have people that are willing to make stuff for them, and then that'll dry up, and it'll be a vicious cycle of people just trying to survive in a digital landscape that is very difficult to survive in and monetize in, especially if you are stuck in the capitalistic endless growth models.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was interesting as well is like, at its very peak, Vice is worth like $6 billion, right? Like, it's a massive, huge, really, respected, because it's kind of like punk rock media thing, and then now it's just like a company were trying to buy it for 400 million last month, which says to me that a lot of these cutbacks are asset stripping, so that the new company that comes and buys it, who are called Group Black, who mostly own like a bunch of what I guess were formerly independent media companies that were created by like people of color. Yeah, I know. And they're going to go and buy Vice, which seems like a really odd turn for them. Like, if you go on their website and stuff, and they're also one of those media companies that have just so many buzzwords on there.
The worst.
So yeah,
like how many of those?
Exactly.
Like
who we are? Group Black is an inclusive, mission-driven media company. We build solutions that accelerate inclusive spreading by brands. With the power of our collective, we create culturally relevant programs that capture diversity, reaching all audience and driving growth.
Do they have an omnidirectional approach to their strategies?
Can I ask a question? Who believes that? Who on earth?
What, these ridiculous corporate statements?
Yeah, like I know who writes them and what they're meant to mean, but who that actually reads shit like that believes it? And why do we keep writing it?
Garrett, can I pull back the curtains a little bit? I was writing that sort of shit for about 6 months, and I can tell you, I was not believing a single word of what I was writing.
No, it's so stupid. Just say what you do and why you do it well. Why do we have to dress it in like 19 mountains of bull? Mostly because it turns out if you said say what you do and do it well, it's a blank page. That's the reason it's dressed in 19 layers of bullshit, I guess. It's so annoying. Like, how many of these companies that were bought up were better off from being bought up by some venture capital firm or some one of these like larger media companies that just buys media companies?
Well, yeah, this is a media company buying a media company, and again, you just see it happen, like a rapid accumulation of these things, and then I don't know. Is there any success stories out of that? Because they always just seem to come in house, get smaller, people lose their jobs, and then they just kind of disappear.
It's just wither. No, I mean, they always just wither.
I mean, it depends on what you want to define. I think it depends on where you are in the company, what you determine as success. Because with anything like this, whether it's a takeover, whether it's a merger, the only thing that happens, the only people that get impacted negatively are, you know, the people on the ground, the people that, you know, actually day to day are making this thing work. So, you know, if you're the CEO, you're, you know, up here, whatever, then, you know, you're probably taking home a nice tidy package and it's a win-win, but nobody wins.
Yeah, the two cat daddies of this world are just out there, just scrapping for the bucks, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah. I just, you know, I hope, and I'm sure these people will land on their feet because, you know, like Klepic's been doing this for over 10 years now, and it's interesting that even though he obviously, you know, he's a left-leaning kind of guy, he's obviously very kind of culturally aware and whatnot, he seems like one of the few people that is like very obviously left-leaning and whatnot who hasn't seemed to have caught the ire of like the Gamergate type folk. I might be completely oblivious, and I'm, you know, his DMs might say otherwise, but he seems like one of the few that has never really drawn the ire of that crowd, and I don't know why that is. But, you know, like, I'm sure he'll land on his feet because he's far too talented not to.
Thought you said, I'm sure he will draw that ire eventually. Which he will.
Oh, well, that as well. Yeah, naturally, of course.
You can't say a thing on the internet without someone getting pissed off eventually.
Speaking of that, that's a good pivot to the last story.
Hi, Jack.
That's me. So yes, Metacritic are improving moderation after abusive and disrespectful Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores reviews. So fandom has responded to Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores recent review bombing on Metacritic. Please note there will be potential spoilers for Forbidden West Burning Shores, so just in case anyone doesn't want that. But the DLC was released this week. Many people were super high on the visuals and the gameplay and stuff, and I think that's never been in doubt with a Horizon game, right? Like those things always look really cool. But one plot point has led to the game being review bombed, where the DLC currently sits with a 3.2 user rating. Previously, Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores saw its user rating drop as low as 2.7. So during the events of the game, Aloy meets Seika, an ambitious marine of the Quen tribe, who has stepped up to help her people survive. Ahead of the DLC's release, Seika was touted as a character that would be Aloy's equal, with actress Ashley Birch even saying Aloy may have met her match. I don't know. So essentially, the two of them hook up in the game.
No, not even hook up.
And then
they can.
A kiss, don't they?
Yeah, but it's not even that they do, it's that they can.
You can choose to do it.
It's a choice you can make. Like, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Yep. It is like the most unobtrusive thing imaginable, and they still fucking lose their minds.
I just don't get it. How many games can you... Like, the last Assassin's Creed game, you could either be like a bloke or you could be a woman, and either way you could hook up with anyone you wanted in the game, and I don't see people review bombing Assassin's Creed for that. So why has this one drawn the ire of people? It's very odd. It's very, very odd.
I think the thing with this, it's good that fandom have come out and said that they're going to like review their policies or moderation or whatnot. I think the bigger thing is it's surprising that it's taken them this long, because it's not like this is the first time that a game has been review bombed because of, you know,
LGBT content,
fucking throw a dartboard at a number of different things.
Exactly. Yeah,
I
think, but the weird thing though, the tough thing is you want them to respond, and it's like when it's outwardly, somebody's writing a comment that's like, why would you make Aloy gay? This is ridiculous. This is horrible. She's not a lesbian. She's got, I don't know, dreadlocks. All of that shit, whatever people want to say or whatever points they want to make, like, that's easy to kind of pass out. But if somebody just, like, coordinated, like, if a bunch of people vote this game as one and they don't leave a comment that's abusive, like, how do you prevent that from happening? Because can you invalidate those review scores that people are giving?
No, but also yes. I guess there's the thing where it's like if they see like 200 ones coming in within 20 minutes of each other, they know what's happening there, But as you said, if you were much more strategic about it and you're like, let's give it 2s and 3s over the course of 3 weeks just to drag that baby down over time. It's like there's nothing you can do about that, and it's just so stupid. And I think that, like, you're talking about why this game and not others. I wouldn't like to cast aspersions about people who would like be deep in the weeds console tribalists, but I'm going to. I believe they will probably believe a certain way and think a certain thing and be a certain kind of person to like be PlayStation is my personality. So I think part of it is just being a PlayStation first party game that puts a particular spotlight and kind of person on it. And again, it's the can that really grinds my gear. It's the fact that this is a thing you can do, but don't have to. And these people still just want to burn PlayStation headquarters to the ground.
Yeah, well, again, I think it's any recent Ubi game, if you can be where you can choose the gender of your main character, you can hook up with anyone you want in the game. There's no limitations on it. So I just find it odd that some games just get dug out for this. Like, why do people not go after, like, Life is Strange?
Because those kind of people aren't going to go near Life is Strange in the first place. Like, Assassin's Creed is probably a decent example because, like, that is a mainstream game that should attract a certain kind of gamer. But Life is Strange will filter that out immediately.
You think about how people lost their minds with The Last of Us 2, and this is going to continue happening. And I greatly enjoy it.
It's Ashley Birch again, isn't it?
Yeah, I was fucking reading through. I was reading through some of the comments on this article, and there were people trying to take the sake of like, well, why does it have to be review bombing? Why can't it just be people leaving negative reviews because they're not happy? And it's like, well, you can kind of tell the difference between like people just not enjoying a game and people giving a 1 and then saying shit like woke and agenda and whatever else. It's not that difficult to fucking put 2 and 2 together to work out what is review bombing. But some people will try it and play devil's advocate, but it's idiots.
Those are the worst people, by the way. Like, they're just people voicing their opinion. Shut up, you stupid dumbass fuck.
They are the boogie. Who the fuck was that YouTube boogie to whatever the fuck he was? The kind of playing both sides.
Yeah, stop straddling your fence, you dumbass piece of shit.
I don't know if you've got to the bit.
It's not even like the straddling the fence. Sorry to cut you off, Mark, but it's not even like the straddling the fence. It's like taking a stance in the guise of straddling the fence. It's like, these people are just. It's like, nope, you're on their side. Stop pretending you're just a middle of the road conscientious objector.
I can't remember if you got into the bit in Always Sunny, Jack, when Mac is like, I'm just playing both sides that I always come out on top.
Yeah. Well, it's also, with the fact that it's a YouTuber and stuff, like, there's a little bit of the carny element in there, isn't it? It's like this person's trying to make money off people, so they'll
I think with him, though, in particular, I think he's earnestly believing in himself that he is, like, above the left-right paradigm, to quote Alex Jones.
No,
and
carny.
he's just not.
I don't know, he smacks of carny to me.
You've watched too much wrestling.
Yeah, I know. I don't anymore, but I can still spot a carny from a fucking mile away. A grifter, if you were. Just looking at people and just going, I can make money from this group of people if I say this, but if I take this stance, I'll make money from this group of people. And then people will then openly argue about what position I am. Just loves attention, loves money, complete carny. Anyway,
I don't know, because I know obviously Steam is subjected to this as well. I'd have to imagine at some point they have talked about this.
It's a very weird problem, isn't it? Like a very, very weird problem. I don't know how reputationally damaging it is to games. You know, I don't know how many people are going to go, you know, if you decide on whether you're going to play a game or not, how many people are swayed by the, like, user score, you know?
I have a single solution. Get rid of all user reviews.
Yeah.
Do you think anybody is any worse off if you cut every user review on the internet?
I mean, Metacritic as a whole.
There's never a story that these user reviews really helped this. You know, there's never a positive user review story. They're all negative and stupid. Just cut them everywhere.
Metacritic as a whole has not been kind to the industry, whether it's this, whether it's, you know, developers' bonuses being tied to a Metacritic score. That
weird Lego story about how, like, the catchphrase in the studio for the recent Lego Star Wars game that came out was 85 on Metacritic. I was like, oh, the poor souls. That's your creative edict. It's like the Metacritic score.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I would ban Metacritic tomorrow. I would just do away with the whole thing.
Anywhere where there's a user rating, get rid of it. It's never been of any use. It has only been used badly.
But you say this, right? You say this. Like, I have lost hours at a time going onto Letterboxd and reading reviews of, like, film reviews on there. Because, like, all the reviews on Letterboxd are either funny or actually informative. You know, I've never come across I guess I've not actively gone and looked at, I guess, you know, more triggering films, if you will, to see, like, what the context of that is. Or maybe they have a really good moderation system. But, you know, I've never seen, like, an attempt to review bomb a film on there.
I would put that in, like, the
you mean there's no, like, lesbian
category.
kiss in Alien versus Predator or something?
Yeah, I'd put that in, like, self-selection. Like, the kind of person that uses Letterboxd is not the kind of person who will get angry at that kind of stuff. But as Letterboxd grows, it will be, because that's always the way of the internet. They always start niche and with normal people just giving user reviews, and then crazy people come in every time and ruin everything for everybody.
Well, there is that, and also the fact that, you know, video gamers are a specific...
The worst.
Well, you know, it's us. It's that, wrestling fans, comic book fans, and there's a Venn diagram where all three meet, and they are a particular brand of unhinged. So, yeah. Go to jail, all of them.
Should.
Garrett, do the phrase. Just say the word.
Jail.
Power Rangers.
I should have said Power Rangers. You're right. God damn it.
I really thought you were going to say Power Rangers.
Fucked it. Absolutely fucked it.
You had one catchphrase.
You had one job, for fuck's sake. On that note, we will leave it there for another installment of A Link to the Cast. Please, as always, like, listen, share, and subscribe. We appreciate any love from you fine people. Do go and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out the podcast there that get released at pretty much the same time as the podcast do on your podcasting platform of choice. As always, on Twitter we are at Link to the Cast. Dave is at The Data Dave. I am at Lithium Project. Jack is at Jack Lazel. Garrett is at Garrett Kidney. Please do join me on Monday at twitch.tv/Lithium Project, where I should be finishing my last installment of Metal Gear Solid. And yeah, so come join me for that. But we'll leave it for there. We'll see you again next week. Thank you very much for listening. And that is it for another installment of A Link to the Cast.
Please don't review bomb us.
Power Rangers.
Jail.